Today we are starting a mini series for the month of December all about different winter holidays that are celebrated around this time of year. So today we're going to start with Hanukkah. I have a collection of books all about Hanukkah that you can share with your students or your own kids to talk about the holiday and the meaning behind the holiday as well as how it is celebrated. And then stay tuned for the next couple weeks because I will also be talking about Christmas books as well as books for Kwanzaa as well. But if you're ready to get into those Hanukkah books, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and hit that red subscribe button down below and we'll get started. The first book that I have is called Little Red Ruthie, A Hanukkah Tale. In this story, it is very similar to Little Red Riding Hood, but it has a Hanukkah spin on it. In the story, just like in Little Red Riding Hood, she's going to visit her grandmother. They are going to celebrate Hanukkah together, but along the way, she meets the big bad wolf. Well, she decides that she needs to be really brave, and so she outsmarts the wolf. She tells him that she's going to go make some latkes with her grandmother, and then after that, she'll be even more plump and more delicious to eat. So he decides, even though he doesn't want to, that he's going to wait. Well, the big bad wolf beats her to her grandmother's house, and her grandmother is out getting ingredients to make the holiday special. But Little Red Ruthie knows that it's the wolf inside the house and that her grandmother's not there. So again, she goes through all these ways to trick the wolf and outsmart him, and she ends up serving him some traditional Hanukkah foods, and he becomes so full on these delicious foods that he doesn't have any more room to eat Little Red Ruthie, and she and her grandmother can celebrate Hanukkah together. This is a fun, sweet story, and it gives just a brief overview of the holiday in a neat way, a way that students who might not be familiar with the holiday will be familiar with the story, the Little Red Riding Hood tale, and can connect to it in that way. And if students aren't familiar with the holiday, then this book would be a good introduction for them. This is called The Story of Hanukkah, and it's just an overview of the history of Hanukkah, but it's told in a simple, kid-friendly way that will help them understand why Hanukkah is celebrated and the meaning behind it. It also, in the end, gives directions on how to play dreidel and gives recipe for latke as well, which is something fun to add to the story. This next one is one of my favorites. This one is called Oscar and the Eight Blessings. In this story, Oscar is fleeing Nazi persecution. His parents put him on a boat to America to go find his aunt. All he has is her address in New York City and a photo of her. His father tells him to look for blessings. Look for the people that are going to help you out when you get there. And when he arrives in New York City, it's cold, it's Christmas Eve, and it's also the 7th night of Hanukkah. And he's trying to get to his aunt's house that night, but he has over 100 blocks to walk. And along the way, he's cold, he's lonely, and he stumbles. But he's also helped out by so many other people. A woman who sees that he's hungry gives him a loaf of warm bread. A street vendor who sees that he's by himself gives him a comic book to read. A young boy notices that he's cold and shares his mittens with him. And eventually he makes it to his aunt's house in this heartwarming tale. Another good story to read aloud for Hanukkah. This next one is a little silly, and I think your kids will get a kick out of it. This one is called Hanukkah Bear. In this story, Baba Brena is getting ready for Hanukkah. The rabbi is coming over to her house, and she's preparing a special feast for him. But she's also 97 years old, and her eyesight and her hearing is not what it used to be. Well, Old Bear smells her cooking and decides to pay a visit to her house. She invites him in thinking that he's the rabbi and asks him to do all the traditional Hanukkah celebrations with her. They play games, they light the menorah, they eat yummy food, and this bear is so excited, and she even gives him a gift on his way out and sends him on his way. Well, then there's another knock on her door, and it's the actual rabbi, and everyone is confused until they see the bear prints on the floor, and they realize that she had actually spent the evening with a bear instead of the rabbi. And throughout the story, she's talking to the bear as though it's the rabbi, but your students will see through the photos and the images in the book that it's really old bear. And I think they'll not only learn about Hanukkah and some of the ways that it's celebrated, but get a kick out of it as well. This next one I also really enjoyed. This one is called The Ninth Night of Hanukkah. It's a fairly new book, just published 2 years ago. But in this story, Max and Rachel have just moved into their new apartment with their family. It's the first night of Hanukkah and they are so excited to celebrate. But then they realize that they don't have all of the things that they need for Hanukkah. They don't have the menorah, they don't have their dreidel, they don't have candles. And they're starting to realize that maybe a box got lost in the move. But each night when they're missing something for their Hanukkah celebrations, they meet a new neighbor who is willing to help them out. Eventually, they've met most of the neighbors in their apartment building by the end of Hanukkah. And Rachel wants to do something really special to thank them. And on the 9th night, she invites them all to their apartment to celebrate Hanukkah with their family. And it finally feels like the holiday that she loves. And then there's a surprise, and that missing box shows up on their doorstep. This next book is also a fun one that I think your students will like, especially as they learn more about the holiday. This one's called Laka the Lucky Dog. In this book, a family decides to adopt a dog from the shelter. And because it's the beginning of Hanukkah, they decide to call him Laka. Well, on each night, Laka gets into different types of trouble based on how they are celebrating Hanukkah that night. Sometimes he knocks over a bowl of applesauce. Another night, he eats all the latkes because that's his name, they must be for him. One night, he rips open all the gifts, and each member of the family starts to get a little frustrated with him, and poor Laka realizes, oh, I hope they don't send me back to the shelter. I want to stay here. And he realizes he needs to make some changes, and he becomes a good dog that follows the rules by the end of Hanukkah, and they all keep him and become one big family. The next two books that I have talk about families that celebrate both Hanukkah and Christmas, and so I want to include them in this video as well. The first one is called Light the Lights. In this story, Emma's family celebrates both Hanukkah and Christmas. And this one is interesting in that the first half of the story is all about the ways that her family celebrates Hanukkah and the traditions that they go through and the different ways that they celebrate. While the second half of the story is all about how her family takes part in traditional Christmas celebrations and how they are split up and they are two separate holidays. But then this next book is similar in that they celebrate both Hanukkah and Christmas. This one is called Daddy Christmas and Hanukkah Mama. And this one, they talk about the two different holidays at the same time and almost how each one has similarities and how they have similar celebrations or traditions, but that they are different. So for example, they go sing Christmas carols, but they also sing Hanukkah songs at the same time. They talk about how they decorate their mantle with a menorah on top and the stockings hung on the side of the mantle. So these two books are interesting in that they both talk about how their family celebrates both holidays, but in different ways. One celebrates them completely differently, and one kind of intertwines the two holidays together. And that's a good segue into the next video that's coming out next Sunday. I'll be talking about my favorite Christmas books that I like to read. But today's video, I hope that you picked out some Hanukkah books that you can share with your class and teach them about the holiday, or invite your students who do celebrate to share their culture, to share their celebrations, their traditions. But I also wanted to share with you, I have a free interactive read aloud, and this one goes with the book Our Favorite Day. The book talks about how everyone has a different holiday that's their favorite, or a different day of the year that's their favorite. I think right around now is a great time to talk about that, because not every student celebrates Hanukkah or Christmas or Kwanzaa, but they might have a different special day, a different part of the year. So inviting them to share that with the class is a great idea. So I'll leave a link to the free interactive read aloud down below that you can get and share with your class. And it works for any time of the year, but again, I think this is a great time to share it as a lot of holiday talk is happening. So those are my books all about Hanukkah that make great read alouds for the classroom for students to learn about the celebrations, about the traditions, and about the history of the holiday. If you have any others, feel free to leave them in the comments down below so that we can all add to our growing list of books to read aloud for Hanukkah. Have a great week!